Hey, everybody. Welcome to our first collaboration with Mad Voters. I am so excited to be doing this. What if you are a regular person in Indiana and you're looking around at what's going on with our government? You're seeing that they're trying to destroy our kids' public education, even though 90% of Hoosier children attend public. And you're like, I don't think the people in power are representing us. Maybe I need to get involved to help out. Yeah, we need you involved. But how do you do it? It's so confusing. How do you get involved in whatever political party you are to get a seat at the table to help get more voices so that we are being heard so our government isn't so extreme? Well, we're going to break it down today. I have two guest hosts. They are district chairs of their districts in Indiana, and they understand the rules about what do we need to do, regular Hoosiers, what do we need to do to get a seat at the table to save our state? So I'm going to bring them both on and we're going to have a conversation. If you are watching live, be sure to comment if you have any questions and we will do our best to explain this. Thank you to Mad Voters for setting this up, and thank you to our guests today coming on. So I have two district chairs. I have Matt and Brian. Please introduce yourselves, you guys. Matt, you go first, and I'm putting Brian on too. And then let's get started.
Thanks for having us here today. My name is Matt Mayer. I am chair of the 4th District of the Indiana Democratic Party. The 4th District stretches from almost Chicago to almost Bloomington, and from almost Kokomo to the Illinois state line. So it's 16 counties and covers a huge geographic area. I've been involved in Democratic politics for 20 years now, first as a county secretary and then a county chair. I've been on city council and I've been on school boards, so I've had a varied career.
Thank you for doing all of that public work. Thank you. Brian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Smith. I am the chairman of the 2nd Congressional District Democrats. So 2nd District starts in South Bend in the north and goes all the way to Peru in the south, and goes east-west from Warsaw, where I live, all the way to Knox in Stark County. So we have not quite as big as Matt, but still 11 counties. We stretch 2 time zones, which is kind of confusing from time to time, and I think Matt might as well. But but prior to being chairman of the 2nd District, I was county chair. Actually, so my time actually starts in 2012 when I started volunteering for Senator Donnelly when he ran the first time. And then after the election, I became treasurer of the Kosciuszko County Democrats, and I held that for 4 years. And then I became county chair of Kosciuszko County, and then I became vice chair of the congressional district, and then I took over as chair of the congressional district last year, and then I was reelected this year. So
wow,
like Matt, I've had a varied career. I've held many hats over the years, and I'm just looking forward to helping others, get involved today.
Yeah, thanks so much for your public service work. A lot of it is unpaid. Thank you both so much for being here. And this is a nonpartisan issue that we're talking about today. We do have 2 Democrat chairs. We have more connections with the Democrats, but Republican chairs, Republican district chairs, you are welcome on the show if you would also like to promote getting more people at the table of democracy and helping make Indiana better. Indiana ranks bad in a lot of things. If you look at the rankings for the 50 states, we want to be at the top and we're normally at the bottom. I think the majority of Hoosiers, regardless of how we vote, we feel unheard. And this is a nonpartisan issue where if more people get a seat at the table of whatever political party you feel closest to, we can help make our state better. So uniting and working together and just how do we solve this problem as Hoosiers instead of looking at the labels is very, very important if we want to save our state from kind of extreme government that we're seeing right now at the state level, which is been scary for most people that are paying attention. So, yeah, I appreciate you two being here. Let's start with first off, most counties have a Democratic Party and a Republican Party. So wherever you live in Indiana, if you haven't looked, look now and just pull up your phone, see if they've got a Facebook page, see if they have a website, look up your so I'm in Harrison County, so I the way I got involved was I got on Facebook and I looked up Harrison County Democratic Party, found that they had a page. I liked it, followed it, messaged the person, and they invited me to a meeting. So that's step one. Find which political party, see if your county has one. Not every county has a Democrat like chair and stuff, right? Not every single, most of them do.
They should all, I'll fess on myself. I currently have one county that we have to get a chair elected to. But
So, okay, that's good.
in a few months, they'll all have them.
So the chances are your county should have a party that you
Yes.
can message and get a hold of. That's good.
At this point, we're at 90 out of 92.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I didn't know that. So this is why I got you two on. You all know your stuff. Thanks. That's such a useful fact. Okay, so each county party gets elected within their county party, and we'll talk about how the elections happen in a few minutes. And there's 4 positions:
Yeah.
chair, treasurer, secretary. What's the other one?
Vice chair.
Vice chair. That should have been second. Sorry. So we're going to break down those roles right now. Who wanted to take on? Oh, you both were going to take on chairs because you both have been chairs or are chairs now.
Mhm.
Okay. So tell us about the chair of the party in your county.
Yeah.
Either one of you. Brian, you start.
Okay. Okay. So, well, I'll start with county chair. So when I was county chair of Kosciuszko County, to me, I was either doing 2 things. I was either recruiting candidates or fundraising. One of those 2 things. Because I live in a very rural county, which is still quite red. We were the reddest in the state for a while, and so we'll talk about primaries here in a minute. But the problem that we had in Kosciuszko County was we didn't have candidates. We went the Warsaw City Council. We went nearly 20 years without a single candidate.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I started very early. So I took over in March of 2017, and I started very early in terms of just talking to my friends. I heard a lot of, well, I don't know enough. I don't know. I don't know about the responsibilities. I don't know about, can I win? I hear those questions all the time. And the answer is whatever is good enough.
Yeah. And then you can learn. We're all able to learn. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's a good answer.
And so, if you wait until like a month before the filing deadline, which is always the last or the first week of February, chances are you're not going to get any candidates. These conversations take place over months of asking your friends, asking, my friends, my neighbors, and just finding quality people, just good people. And sometimes I recruit multiple people for one office. I didn't just limit myself to one person and say, oh, no, you can't run for that. I always said, I'm looking at people, and I think that you would be a good fit for this role.
That's really nice to hear, because we just have a new chair in Harrison County and we're still figuring out things. So just to hear that was your plan, that kind of gives me a little bit of I can talk to my chair and help her because a lot of our new people are learning what to do. Do you have anything to add to that, Matt?
I do. My thing I really stress to my chairs, because I have a lot of new chairs this year in the district, and we're setting up a program where they'll have a former county chair from another county be sort of a mentor figure. So when they have questions they want to bounce off somebody, they'll have that experience.
That's a great idea.
But the thing I really stressed to people as they were considering whether or not to run is that the question you shouldn't ask yourself, because it's an all-encompassing job if you do it that way. And there are things, like Brian said, it's unavoidable the chair must be involved in. recruiting candidates and fundraising. But the thing I really press on people is don't ask yourself if you have enough time to be chair. Ask yourself if you know the right people to do the job. Too many chairs try to carry the burden on themselves, and it's just, in the long run, it's disastrous for them because they just burn themselves out. And it's
That is such good advice.
Yeah,
our chair that just left, Adam Snyder, he did a really good job of letting leaders that wanted to lead on a certain thing take the reins, and he was not controlling. He might step in and say something if something seemed off, but for the most part, he let us do what we wanted. And that's why Harrison County Democrats seemed bigger than we are, because he was able to just let us do what we wanted.
It is a great talent development tool.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Okay. So vice chair? So vice chair is second to chair. Who would like to start there?
Since I've been a vice chair, so I was vice chair of the congressional district, and that can be kind of an undefined role, but just supporting the chair as much as possible, always giving advice, and Laura O'Sullivan was our district chair, and she was Pete Buttigieg's chief of staff when he was mayor.
Wow. Cool.
And so, like I said, I just, wherever Laura needed help. And so, just the advice role of it, was what I did. And I just wanted to make sure that we were always on the same page. And I always supported whatever, she felt was the right call on the state central committee, and things of that nature. And so I always appreciated that she valued my input. And
nice. So you're supporting the chair, and helping if they ask for help. And then maybe you could probably also help be communicating between your volunteers that come to meetings and your chair, and just kind of cleaning up any miscommunication issues. I would imagine that might be part of it too.
Yeah. So, and in the congressional district, like Matt and I represent very large geographical swaths. And since I'm one of the more rural counties, kind of centrally located, I would go to meetings with our counties in the southern part of our district. And so Laura could focus on St. Joe County, LaPorte, and Elkhart. And so we kind of divided up the workload that way as well.
That's nice. Okay. What about secretary?
So secretary, I've actually been a county secretary and a district secretary.
Oh, neat.
The secretary's primary responsibility is record keeping the minutes of the meeting, keeping the roll or the roster of the precinct chairs. They should be the one that sends out communication to the precinct chairs to announce meetings. Those are really the primary roles. Beyond that, you kind of hope that the secretary can provide broader communication, abilities to your county. Like we said, pretty much every county is going to have a Facebook page, and I think that that can be sometimes a great fit, is to have the secretary oversee that social media communication, because it takes something off the plate of the chair and the vice chair.
I feel like a secretary is much more important role than it was maybe 20 years ago because of social media and because of email. Your secretary could do the bare minimum and just take notes of the meeting, or they could really pump out communication and make sure the public knows when meetings are and where they are and what events are taking place, and motivate people to come.
Yeah.
And
it's funny you mentioned that, because when I was a county secretary, it literally was 20 years ago. And it was, okay, I gotta make sure the newspaper knows, and I got to make sure that, that one website that like a newspaper knows. And then I got to handwrite my meeting minutes and keep track of them. And that's something that's becoming more important, is, being in charge of archiving those meeting minutes, because my predecessor as district secretary sadly died in a house explosion. And
that's so sad.
We lost all records of the district before that point in time. So, that's something I should probably mention, is that we move into this digital age and we're maybe not taking minutes on paper anymore, is figuring out a way so that if it is digital 10, 15 years from now, you can go back and show, yeah, we did approve the minutes, to cash out that CD and spend it, which is an actual event that happened in my time.
Wow.
So
that's fascinating.
Being able to have that historical record is really an important part of the secretary. But yeah, moving forward now, when I was district secretary, which was just in the last couple of years, you're right, it's a lot more about the social media than it is the newspaper and making sure they know.
In Harrison County, we needed a secretary. Ours moved to Chicago, and I used social media to ask. And we got a brand new person that has now been to 3 meetings total. And she is our secretary, and she is fantastic. And she knows how to use AI to help us take notes, and she knows how to make outlines better, and she knows how to do stuff that we, the leaders, did not know how to do. And so those of you listening that have never been involved in your county party, you don't have to get involved for years before you can take on a leadership role. I talked to her for like an hour and a half on the phone to just find out her thoughts before, and then she came in and she wrote a speech and she read it, and we elected her, and she's doing a fantastic job. So you don't have to pay your dues or whatever. You can just come in, jump in, and help.
Secretary is a great sort of intro to leadership role. And I say that because both times I was secretary, my immediate next job was chair. So
wow.
Always been the pathway to being a chair.
That's fascinating. And then last one is treasurer, which is extremely important. Brian, have you been treasurer?
Yes. So I was treasurer of the Kosciuszko County Democrats from 2013 through 2017. It is very much an I want to say underappreciated, but undervalued role because you are responsible for money. And so nowadays with Google Sheets and other kind of sharing platforms, it's easier for the chair, the vice chair, the executive committee to know where we stand on funds and fundraising, and making sure that our reports are filed on time. So before every primary election, and then before every general election, and then at the end of every year, county parties, district parties, candidates have to report where their funds came from and where their funds went. Some counties report just to their local county clerk. If you do that, you have to know if you cannot spend money on any statewide candidate or candidate for state office. So if your county committee is organized in your county, you can only spend money on county candidates and issues, which a lot of counties, I did not know that. And, you don't want to get in trouble. So if your county party wants to support your local state rep or state senate candidate or one of our statewide candidates, like, Jennifer McCormick, when she was running for governor, you have to file with the secretary or the election division of Indiana.
Oh, that's interesting. I think I've heard bits and pieces of that, but I didn't fully understand it. So that helps. And also, those of you that are serving these 4 offices, you have your clerk in your county that will answer questions if you have a good one. We have really good person that works at the clerk's office, and his name is Michael I can't remember. It was Michael, and he does a great job of answering questions. So I will ask questions. What's the rule here? And I'll get an email back very quickly. So you don't have to know all the rules if you take this role. You just ask someone that knows and find out. I'm not reading 50 pages of documents to find an answer. I'm quickly asking somebody because I just didn't have the time, and I would get an answer. So yeah. Also,
the one thing I would warn on that is that if they provide you bad advice,
Yes. Yes.
it's still on you, not them.
So you might ask a couple people and make sure it matches up. That's a good tip. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, you need the person to be reliable and accurate and say, I don't know if they don't know instead of guessing. Yeah. And then another one about how important treasurer is, it should be a very transparent. Whoever the person is should be open to sharing all of the money records with people that ask. If they are not wanting to share, that's you might want to get in there and look. I don't know any shady things happening at county treasurers, but just in general with nonprofits or with like a school boosters, or even a PTO, I know of quite a few instances where money was taken and it wasn't transparent. It also happens at churches. Um, and usually nobody says it aloud because it's embarrassing. And so the person just gets fired or gets out, and then they go to another organization and they do it again. But there are people out there that become treasurers of groups and they mismanage the money and they take a cut for themselves. So make sure whoever the treasurer is of your organization, they are transparent and they show you the records. You want a good one in there. Yeah. And then, okay, so let's now to get elected into these positions.
Mhm.
It's not just a meeting where any Democrat or any Republican shows up at the meeting and gets to vote. You have to be a precinct chair to vote for chair, vice, secretary, treasurer.
Mhm.
This is a big reason why we're having this Mad Voter collaboration with Project Next today. We need more precinct chairs coming to meetings and voting for these positions. Can you guys explain? I'm a precinct chair. Can you explain what is a precinct chair? How do people become one?
A precinct chair is really the local face of the party. They're most precincts, especially if you're in any sort of urban or even a small town, a small town will have a couple of precincts, so you're not going to cover an entire town. You're going to cover mostly your neighborhood, so it's going to be the people you know and live with, and your responsibility is to kind of keep track of where they are politically, be a face of the party, engage with them, try and recruit other volunteers, but most of all, make sure they vote. It is, we have this tendency to focus on the national when the most important is the local. And so that's why, everyone's very concerned with who the next state chair is, but nobody's out recruiting PCs. And this is why we're in the problem we're in, is that the PCs have a far greater impact on the success and fortunes of this party than any chair does.
So precinct chairs have a role to help engage voters in their community.
Yeah.
There are a lot of vacancies, I
Yeah.
believe, on both political parties in counties. There are tons of vacancies. So we need more good precinct chairs on both political parties. How do people become one?
There's two ways. Republicans do their elections in the presidential years. We do them in the off years. So May of 26, we will elect precinct chairs. Any precinct that doesn't have a chair elected to it, the chair of the county can then appoint people to those precincts. The key difference between the two is that one, elected precinct chairs do not serve at the pleasure of the chair, whereas an appointed precinct chair does serve at the pleasure of the chair. The other, elected precinct chairs must live in their precinct and they cannot be moved from their precinct. Appointed chairs can live anywhere in that county and they can be shuffled around as the county chair needs.
So if you want to get involved, you've never been to a meeting, find out when your county meetings are, go to that meeting, and then express after maybe the second or third meeting or whatever,
Yeah.
express interest in becoming a precinct chair. You don't have to wait, right? You don't have to wait till May 26th to be a precinct chair. If there's one open, I think we can just get you in,
Appoint-
right?
Yeah,
Yep.
that county chair, once they're comfortable, just appoints them.
Yeah. So we don't have to wait until next May, but you can. But if your precinct chair is open, the chair can appoint you, is what you're saying. That's, I guess, what happened to me. And then if your precinct area has one, they can appoint you to one nearby, right? So you can very quickly become a precinct chair, either being appointed or you can wait and be elected. But this is how we save Indiana, you all. This is how we help our government be less extreme. We need every single precinct chair on Republican and Democrat side filled up and working towards the benefit of all Hoosiers and not the extremists in power making decisions that hurt the majority of us. So please let us know if you have any questions about precinct chairs. You can contact Mad Voters, and you can also ask at Project Next, and you can also ask your all's Democratic parties on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people that will answer your questions, but this is the biggest reason why we're having this episode today, is to encourage more precinct chairs. At Harrison County, we need more precinct chairs. We do not have everyone filled up, and some of the people have been precinct chairs for a very long time and do not attend meetings anymore. So we need to get new ones in that will attend. And then whenever we have an election, which sometimes we'll have a chair step down for personal reasons, they don't serve. We forgot to mention there's 4-year terms. The chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer all serve 4-year terms, but sometimes they leave. And so then you need a special meeting where the precinct chairs come and vote, and we need 2/3 of all precinct chairs to show up, right? In order for that election to count. Is that correct?
A quorum.
A quorum, to have a quorum. Yep. Good job. You know this stuff better than I do. Yeah. So we've had that happen several times, and we put it out on email, social media, letters. We let them know. But we need more precinct chairs in Harrison County. So if you're listening and you live here, feel free to try to get involved. I don't know if the Republican Party needs more precinct chairs or if they have them all filled. I do not know. I would love to know if somebody knows that answer, to let me know. Okay. And then how did both of you, let's take like 1 to 2 minutes each here. How did you all know you should step into these roles? Like you're all saying you didn't know how to do everything, but you got involved and found out, and then you took on chair positions, and then you're taking on district chair, which is a lot of work. And I'm very thankful. It's volunteer, it's unpaid. How did you all know to step up and do that? Who'd like to go first? How about Matt, you go first, and then we'll do Brian.
How did I know I should be chair?
How did you know to stand up and run for that and do that position? That is a hard position. It's a lot of responsibility.
Well, and like I said, I had the good fortune of having been secretary first. So, that benefits you in 2 ways. Number one is everyone gets comfortable with you, and so they see that you may have the leadership skills necessary. The other thing is that it gives you that chance to be comfortable. And I ran into that. I was talking to actually it's a colleague of my wife's who was interested in potentially being chair in a county. And then he was like, I really need to see it in action first. So now he's the vice chair because it gives him that opportunity to get involved, get his feet wet without having everything on him. So, I was really lucky in that regard that, I became a secretary at the same time I became a precinct chair because, I was 30 at the time, and there were some people who wanted me to get involved, and it was just kind of before I even knew it.
So you just step up into a role you feel comfortable with,
Yeah.
get help, learn it. And then when you see what the other roles are that are a little bit bigger and they need help, you just
Right.
step up and get in. And then again, we're all a pretty friendly community where we're trying to save our state and make it better. Ask for help, I would think, would be a big
And
one.
that's the, to get off on a slight tangent. I mean, people both find it intimidating to get involved, but also some people will go to a meeting and feel like, well, I went to one meeting and those people weren't friendly. There's it's a commitment, and you got to be comfortable with the commitment, and they got to be comfortable that you're comfortable with the commitment. So
I'm just going to say I've had my feelings hurt at many meetings, many Democratic meetings. I love these people now. I didn't know them at first, and they might have accidentally hurt my feelings. I just had to suck it up and keep going. And then I got comfortable where I could say, hey, my feelings were hurt when this and this thing happened, and we can kind of clear it up once I got to know them. But I hear you on that. It is a problem. I'm really work on trying to make sure our volunteers feel welcomed. but we're not always perfect. We do mess up. So I hear you on that a lot. And then, Brian, what about you? How did you decide to step up and take on this major role?
So we'll start with county chair. So when I became county chair in 2017, it was when Trump came into office the first time, and I felt that it was my part to be part of the resistance. But also I wanted to, and I was 28 at the time, and I was one of the youngest county chairs, if not the youngest. And I wanted to give younger people a voice in the Democratic Party, but also their government in general. I wanted to recruit as many young people to run for office as possible, to get involved in the political system, and to know that they can affect change. That doesn't necessarily mean, we always won, but we got issues out there. And there were issues that I was passionate about in Kosciuszko County that I felt like needed to be addressed. And being county chair was my outlet to do that. And I'm just, so grateful for those who encouraged me to run, who supported me for the 4 years I was county chair. And I am proud to say that we got many millennials and young people to run for office. And then district chair, I just want to help up and coming county chairs as much as possible in their counties. I'm really excited, for some of the younger county chairs that we have. And to see them have success in their counties, and to just always be there if they, have a question about something or have a situation that they need some advice on. And then, being from a rural area, I'm surrounded by cornfields. And so I want to help Democrats be able to talk about agricultural issues and know the difference between rural and agricultural. Those terms are thrown around, but they don't always mean the same thing. And so I want to help our candidates be able to talk about agricultural issues. And so those are just kind of the things that are why, I'm active in Democratic Party politics, and hopefully that we can turn the tide in rural and agricultural areas.
That's both of you said fantastic things, and just thank you for what you're doing. And yes, young people, that is so important. Our Democrat voter turnout in Indiana is pretty low. A lot of people, especially young people, feel unheard, and then they feel hopeless, and they don't see their elected officials listening to them. So they say, why bother? Why vote? And we need to be more active in our state. And hopeless is a really great feeling for those extremists in power. They want you to feel hopeless. They want you to not vote. And when we instead engage in our government, and even when we get our feelings hurt, sometimes we keep going and we become precinct chairs and we go to meetings, and maybe we put our name on the ballot. That's how I got started. I ran for county council, and then I ran for state house, and I didn't really know what I was doing either time, but I figured it out as I was going. And this is how we get more people engaged. And we're not going to fix Indiana in 2 years. We're playing the long game here. So in my opinion, you all chime in. I'm just going to try to list things we need to do. We need everybody that cares about Indiana to get involved in their political party. We need some of you all to become precinct chairs. We need to fill up the ballot on a local level, and we need to get the word out to our neighbors, the local issues, and how they most of them don't know our Indiana government is extreme. We have to teach them. It doesn't matter what political party you are. We need to teach them they're not listening to us, and put pressure on them to be better, and then maybe to vote some better people in. Is there anything I'm missing there with the big picture?
No, what I would say is, there's 680 township offices up on the ballot next year in the 16th district alone. The 4th district alone. I'm sorry, the 16 counties of the 4th district. And there's probably going to be 800 spots on the ballot in that district. And those local offices, those township offices are a great sort of single A baseball version of politics to get your feet wet and get started. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's a township. Most counties, that's a small number of people. They're your neighbors. Cargill-esque level.
I'm losing Matt. Brian, can you hear Matt?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I lost you for just a second. Sorry about that. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up. In this next election in November 2026, which will have primaries May 2026, in this next election, there are so many things locally on the ballot. And those of you listening who have never attended a meeting, maybe you've never even voted, you all can get your name on the ballot for small things that are very important, like township trustee, township advisory board. Township trustees give government money to those that need it. They can't pay their bills. Maybe they had a loved one pass away and they can't afford the funeral. The township trustees give money that's our government money, and the township advisory board only meets a few times a year, and they set the requirements for the township to either make it easier or harder to receive that money. I personally would like township advisory board members to make it easier for people to get money, to make the packet of information that they'd have to fill out not 16 pages, but make it one and get them money quickly so they stay housed or whatever. But some township advisory board members make it very difficult, like these people are bad and want to hurt them. So you can get a little bit of money for being a township advisory board, and you only a member, and you only go to a few meetings a year, but you can actually help someone stay housed, help a family. You can do a lot of good. And then the township trustees give out that money based on those requirements. So there's just so many positions on this next election where you all can help your township. And not all states have townships. We're kind of lucky that Indiana has them. And it's really important that you elect someone that is good. We have a good Republican township trustee. We had a good Democrat one before that. So we're lucky in Morgan Township. But not all townships are equal. Sometimes the people kind of hoard the money, and sometimes the people want to help.
And it's great
Yeah.
training for running for other county offices down the road.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you could start there and then go up to whatever other, maybe a full-time position. Yeah, there's a lot on the ballot. There's like, we have prosecutor, we're going to have sheriff, we're going to have auditor. We really need a good auditor in Harrison County. What other things? Judge. There's a lot of county stuff happening in this next election.
But yeah, well, thank you though for mentioning township trustees, because when I was county chair, that was the office that I really targeted the most. And because we had two townships in Kosciuszko County, one is Turkey Creek, which is Lake Wawasee, which has some of the most expensive real estate in Indiana. Yet the children at Wawasee High School, many of them are on food stamps, and at that time, still do have lunch debt. We have, just enormous wealth on one side, and then incredible poverty on the other of children with debt. And our township trustee was running the largest township surplus in the state. And we had so many people who needed help that this town, that did not know that help was out there. And so we ran a great campaign with incredible candidates, and we were at least able to get the message out there that help exists. And then in Warsaw, in Wayne Township, which is Warsaw, which also ran a huge surplus, we were able to force a tax cut for the people. So even if you aren't successful, even if you don't win, public pressure still matters. I mean, that's democracy too. And democracy isn't just voting. Democracy is going to meetings. It's using your voice.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things we've said today. So good job for saying that. Even though we are not in power, the Democrats are not in power in our state, we can call out those things that are hurting us. Mad Voters is bipartisan, and Mad Voters is very good at pointing out, look at this scary bill. It's going to hurt the majority of Hoosiers. Do this thing to try to stop it. Because of Mad Voters and because of people paying attention and calling out bad laws, we have stopped some of them. Have we stopped all of them? No. But if Mad Voters wasn't around, more bad things would be law right now. And that's us calling it out. Each one of us, we each know different people. If we take time to simply say, do you know our state government is defunding public education? And if they continue, your local school may be shut down and it may be turned into a charter school so that a few people can make a bunch of money. And most people don't know. And this is bipartisan. We got to save our public schools. So don't lose hope. It doesn't matter if we don't win. We run for something and we call out the bad and we stop some of it.
Yeah, I mean, Mad Voters does a great job at making people aware, but it really, it's on us to fill those ballots so that people have that choice. That people, I mean, because too many of those people making those decisions win by default because they go unopposed because it's very difficult and quite expensive to take them on. But we have to do it. Our voices have to be heard on election day.
So this is a really good point we talked about before we went live that I want to mention to you all. It is very important that we fill up our primary ballot. The primaries are the election that happens in May before the November election. And you go in the way it's done in Indiana is you walk in and they say, what political party do you want a voter ballot for? And you say either Republican or Democrat. And then they write that down. So we have a record. If you're voting in the primary, we can see whether you took a Republican ticket or a Democrat ticket. We can't see how you voted. We don't know which person you voted for. And what happened in this past election was, since there were so few people on the Democratic primary ballot, a lot of Democrats pulled a Republican ballot in the hopes of getting somebody else other than Mike Braun, who's our current governor. They were trying to get somebody less extreme. And then that creates a whole other issue I'll talk about in a second. We need a bunch of people on those primary ballots on both parties. I know that when there's a city and it's heavily Democrat, the Republican ballot doesn't have a lot of people on there. We need people on there. We need competition. We need healthy competition, calling out all political sides so that we're the best. And then we need Democrats to show up on the primary, and we need Republicans to show up and pick the better candidate, do a little bit of research, who is best. And so something I'm going to be spending a lot of Project Next hours on is talking to people that will be on the primary. At 1:30 today, you all, in 45 minutes, I am interviewing George Hornendo, who is going to primary Andre Carson for Congress in Indy. And I will gladly have Andre Carson on my show as well if he wants to come on. I am encouraging primaries, healthy competition. Let's get those people in Indy going at the primary in May and taking a Democratic ballot and picking who they think is best. That is healthy. And I'm kind of get discouraged when the people in charge, like the state party and the national party, do not endorse primaries. I think we could do much better job if we said, healthy competition is good for us, and we need the best person representing our areas, our districts.
Yeah, it's always discouraging in April of election years when, it's all Republican yard signs and they are able to have the entire narrative to themselves for a good chunk of the year. And then we have to push back on that. People don't forget. People don't forget, the 4 months of hearing Republican talking points and then really nothing from Democrats. That hurts us. And so, when I was county chair, we only had one contested Democratic primary, which was big news. So I get that, lots of times it's really hard to get a candidate for an office, but we, a springtime where it's the Republicans get to control the narrative, it does hurt us. And, we can't be in denial about that.
This is where just regular people concerned about Indiana can step up. It's not that hard to get on the ballot if you have a couple people that will help you. I have some people that help me fill out the paperwork because that's the thing I hate the most when I run for office is the paperwork. And I just have my friends help me make sure I'm filling it out correctly. And I have the clerk's office checking it over for me. And I just let them know I'm a little concerned about this. I don't want to, and they help me. And I am going to run for state house again, and I'm going to actively try to find people to primary me because I think that will help turn out Democrat voters. And if the Democrats in District 70 and for state house elect somebody else, I will be perfectly fine with that. I can handle it. They should elect who they think will best represent them. And I think we need to stop looking at it as a personal, you don't like me, I'm so offended. And we need to look at healthy competition drives people coming to vote, and we should be researching our candidates and we should have options. The fact that Democrats have such few options at the primary is really hurting us. Let's talk a minute about gatekeeping before we get off here. So if you were one of those Democrats that pulled a Republican ticket in last year's primary, and then you wanted to run for county office or district chair or something, there's actually steps written down. There's rules in place where they can tell you, no, you don't get to run for it because you look like a Republican. I personally don't think people know that happens. So you all, if you're planning on getting involved, stay in your political party. And also, if it does happen, the chair can write a letter, I believe, in most instances to still allow them to be in the process, but they can also use it as a reason to get you out. Do you all have any comments on that?
I mean, my time as a county chair, I usually signed those letters. Normally speaking, I mean, as we've discussed, the Republicans are the ones who usually have the contested primaries. My time as a county chair, we had a pretty heavily contested prosecutor's primary, a judge's primary, and you end up signing those letters for people who want to run. And in one case, literally, I signed the letter for a person who ran for judge to beat the candidate they had voted against in the Republican primary that spring. So I can only think of one situation where I didn't sign the letter, and it was someone being taken advantage of, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I really applaud you. You have a lot of power as a district chair, as a county chair, and I applaud you doing that. And I hope that everybody most of the time signs those letters. I'm sure occasionally somebody shouldn't be. I get it. But I would say most of the time the precinct chairs should get to elect who's in those positions of power in your county or in your district. I don't think one person should unless under certain circumstances. So, yeah.
And most of the time, their true intention. I mean, that's the key. I mean, someone who's been a lifelong Republican, they would probably need to have a really compelling story to why I would sign that letter. But, most of the time, you're signing a letter for someone who, like I said, voted in a judge's primary and has always otherwise been a Democrat. And that. If you're good at your job, these people.
To just realize there are rules out there. I wish the rules were less. I wish it were easier for people to join political parties, to run for office. I think we could do things in Indiana to make things simpler. It is a little confusing running for state house. I got friends to help me fill it out. I wish it were simpler. We could be making it easier if we elected people in positions of power that wanted more democracy and not less. We could collectively change this over the years. And that's something I hope for.
This is a vestige of the patronage system, and they've largely stripped out the patronage but left all the control because it benefits the people who write the rules.
I want to talk just briefly about, we've had some drama in the Indiana State Party the last few weeks because we did elect a new chair of the state party. And Courtney says, do you think the state party needs to do a better job of informing people of the various roles available and how people can get involved? How would you suggest improving the communication to reach the public? Thanks, Courtney, for saying that. She's a friend of mine. And I'm going to say, yes, I think more people should be at the table. I think things should be more transparent. I think we should know more of what's going on. Brian, do you want to chime in there on that?
Just, the we do need to involve our grassroots in the decision-making process. Our state party is one of the smallest in the country, and I feel like we could definitely benefit from more voices at our state central committee table, and also our state convention. Our state convention delegates, I believe, should have a greater role and a greater say in our party and its operation. I support changing rules so that we conform with most other states, and that our convention delegates will elect our national DNC, Democratic
Ooh,
National Committee.
I like
members.
that. I was a delegate this time for the first time. Did you know in Arizona, over 700 Democrats elected their chair, and we had around 50-ish, and some of those people got half a vote in
40.
Indiana?
40.
Yeah, 40. Yeah, and there were underhanded things that happened that I'm upset about, and I've said about it publicly on Project Next, where the Central Committee really influenced who won, and a lot of Indiana Democrats are upset, and we're actively putting the chair on Project Next, and we will continue to have her on. We're not going to be rude or anything, and we're appreciative that she wants to get the message out. But at the same time, I would like to see more people at the table, more people voting for Central Committee, and it not be so much Central Committee voting for Central Committee things. Because how are we going to save our state if we're not letting a larger, more diverse group of people have a say at how we save our state? Matt, do you have anything to say about that?
We do need to, there's some modernization that needs to occur. We still operate very much with rules that were written decades ago, and we do need to modernize. We need to expand the size of the base. I mean, that's the base of the Central Committee, because it needs to reflect the base of the party, and it doesn't currently. And I'm hopeful that, I will say, getting back to Courtney's question about communicating these things out, the state party has been rewriting the PC manual, for instance, because it was terribly outdated. And it's very dense, but it's a lot better than it was. And so I do think they're working on that. But I would also say there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. But there also needs to be more communication within the party. Through the levels. I mean, a lot of this stuff, it would be nice if they were pushing down to the county parties to get out. I think that,
Yeah, I agree.
Communication from the state party is fine, but it's a little monolithic. If that's in communication is coming from your county party, I think there's going to be more interaction. It's easier to ask questions, kind of dig into what does this mean? How can I be more involved? That communication's better presented by a county party than the state party. So the state party, the district parties should really be resources to strengthen the county parties. The county parties, I believe, and Brian disagrees, he can do so, that the county party should be the main mouthpiece of the party in the state.
I agree.
I just want to invite you all, we only have a couple more minutes, that each of you can come on Project Next at another time so we can go into more detail about your hopes for Indiana. Both of you have fantastic ideas. I feel more hopeful meeting you two. I'd never met you all before. I feel more hopeful for Indiana. Each of you is a district chair. There are only 9 district chairs in Indiana, you all. And these two both have fantastic ideas, want to welcome people, want to work with people, want to fill up their ballot at the county and the district level. And it brings me hope. I am so happy to meet you and to consider you a new friend. I will share my cell number with you, and I want you all to let me know if you have something to say. Let's pump it out. Hopefully Project Next will just keep growing, and we can help the state, regardless of political party. We can help the state get better so that Hoosiers are being heard. If you're just now joining Project Next for the first time, I would ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's one word, Project Next Movement. I believe Project Next works now as well too. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, search Project Next Indiana. And then we're on Instagram, Twitch, and I can't think if I'm on anything else or not. We're on TikTok, some of our shows. And so if you could just subscribe and follow and share with friends, the more people that listen to Project Next shows, the greater the chance that people in power will listen to us and will make policies and make changes to make Indiana and the country better. I believe the Indiana Central Committee is making changes. You just told us one, Matt, that sounds great. I am seeing that too. I know they're writing a policy to help hold accountable elected officials when they're accused of something like sexual assault, things like that. They're updating policies, and then they're going to hopefully do a better job of holding people accountable when they misuse their power. So I'm really interested in those type of things. So if you all, if the two of you find out about stuff like that and would like to come on and tell us, I just would love that. Thank you, Matt and Brian. Do you all each have a closing thing you want to say? I just am so appreciative that you did this today. And I want to thank Mad Voters. I want to thank all of the volunteers of Mad Voters. You all are amazing. Thank you. Brian, any closing words?
I would just like to thank you, Sarah, for all that you're doing with Project Next and getting, a balanced but progressive viewpoint out there to people. And I'd like to thank everyone who listened today. Hopefully, I was able, myself and Matt were able to give you some tips and how to get involved and that you can run with. And this is a great new platform, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Sarah, and I want to thank Brian for being on today. I want to thank Mad Voters for inviting us. I think this was a great event and a very important one. I want to urge anyone who watched this, who has had any thought about getting involved in their local party, to please do so.
Yes.
It seems far scarier than it actually is. And once you get past some of the crusty exteriors, these are people who think and feel the same way about how this world is going as you do. And once you kind of get past that, you're going to find that they care about the same things you care about.
Yes. And thank you to all the people that commented. Sorry, I didn't have time to put all of them on the show. In a half an hour, you all, I am doing a live with George Hernando. And so stay tuned for that if you want. And you can catch our shows live, or you can watch them anytime after. So don't feel like you have to watch them when they're live. It's just nice if you want to comment you can maybe get on the show. So everybody share the stuff, get the word out. If you're not following Mad Voters, if you're a Project Next listener and you don't know about Mad Voters, look up Mad Voters Indiana. They have a website. They're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. They're on just about everywhere. Find them, follow them, and you will quickly become more of an expert on Indiana law. Mad Voters is the main reason I felt comfortable running for State House. Once they started, I read all the stuff they pumped out for a year and was like, I feel like I know enough about State House now, because before I knew nothing. I think I could do this job. And then I got on the ballot. So thank you, Mad Voters. You're awesome. Please follow them if you don't. And just the volunteers that work for hours pumping out those graphics and information for us. So appreciative. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. And if you want to catch me in a half an hour, you can. And love all of you all. Thank you. And bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.